Hello everybody, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools and welcome to my session this evening here in the UK and whatever time it is wherever you are. Welcome to my session on the SharePoint Online Rollup tool, content rollup tool for Office 365 and also SharePoint on premises, and that is our Lightning Conductor add-in. So first of all, what I'm going to do is just quickly introduce you a little bit to myself and also to the company, and then we'll get well underway with the product, talking about the product and jumping into some demonstrations as well of how you can use the Lightning Conductor to perform all sorts of different types of aggregation of SharePoint lists, and that is not just within inside a site or a site collection, but also across site collections inside your SharePoint environment. So first of all, like I say, my name is Brett Lonsdale. I'm the founder of Lightning Tools, which is coming up for our 10th year anniversary, which will be the beginning of next year. And since then, we've been creating all sorts of different tools and products for both SharePoint on premises and SharePoint Online as well. And they range from tools such as permissions management, business connectivity services tooling, to connect to different external data sources, as well as some visualization such as charting and data views that we produce. And we also have a social tool as well called Social Squared. There's some great exciting news coming out about that tomorrow. We have a new version of our Social Squared product which includes some handheld device apps, so apps for your smartphone as well. And of course we have the Lightning Conductor, which is what we're going to be talking about today. I think a majority of people this evening are from the United States, but if you are here in the UK, you may be aware of the UK Community Day, which is something that I organise, and we have a hands-on event every few months, so you can bring your own device and you can learn things like Power BI, and Power BI was the last one that we did, and prior to that we also had an Office 365 End User Day, and we've also had an IT Pro and a Developer Day as well. So these are some interesting events. If you are in the UK, feel free to check them out on ukcommunityday.com, and also please follow us. We're on at Lightning Tools. That way you'll get to hear of other webinars that we produce and other information about SharePoint in general, and also our products as well. So what are we going to be talking about? Well, first of all, we're going to just discuss some different examples of using the Lightning Conductor, and some of these examples are examples that our customers make use of the product for. So all sorts of different things ranging from tasks to document libraries, but variations of that, not just straightforward querying all of the tasks or all of the documents. So we'll have a look at how we can build some interesting scenarios using the Lightning Conductor as a roll-up tool. And then we're going to spend most of the time configuring it. So there won't be many slides. We're going to jump straight into Office 365. We have an unconfigured instance of the Lightning Conductor add-in on the page, and we'll go through and we'll start creating some simple views and then build some more complex ones as we go on. And there'll be some not just grid views, but also we'll build some calendars and timeline views and things like that, which should be exciting for you to see. And at the end of the webinar, we'll also open up for some questions. So if anybody does have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, which is something you can do in the GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar software. So everybody currently is muted, but at the end of the session, please raise your hand and I'll unmute you and you can ask your question. Obviously, we need to have a working mic for that. However, what you can do if you don't have a working mic, you're only listening to me, then feel free to tweet your question, and I'll keep an eye on that as well. So please tweet that to @LightningTools, and I'll be sure to answer that as well. Okay, so first of all, probably the most common type of roll-up that our customer base is using, and our customer base is, we've had the Lightning Conductor out as a product since SharePoint 2007, so the early days of SharePoint 2007. It didn't matter if you were using SharePoint Foundation or all the way up to obviously SharePoint Enterprise. You could use the Lightning Conductor to roll up content from across different site collections, and the types of scenarios that we've seen our customers building over those years are lots of different variations of documents. Now, as I mentioned, we're not just talking about let's just roll up all of the documents from within inside our environment. We're talking about some nicer type of filtered views in that. Either you've got some custom content types that you want to aggregate from, so we can include those custom content types or out-of-the-box content types as well, or you can build in some filters, and those filters will allow you to build scenarios such as things like recently created documents. So if you imagine within inside your SharePoint environment, maybe on the home page of or the root site of each site collection, or even the root site for your tenant, you could have an add-in displaying the most recently created documents. And these are all security trimmed as well. So you don't need to be concerned that other people are going to be able to see your content once it's rolled up. It will only be people that would have permissions to that content anyway would be able to see that. But it would always show up to 10 most recently created documents within inside the Lightning Conductor. You could also use it as a personal add-in. So whoever is configuring the Lightning Conductor could configure it to show things like documents created by you, and you being the logged in user. So what they could do there is use either the created by column, or they could use the modified by column and have a filter on that column that is using the me keyword. So as each user logs onto the environment, the content is going to be dynamically displayed, and you'll be able to see the content that either you last modified, or you created, or even you checked out as well is another scenario there. Also, a lot of our customers use managed metadata. If you're using managed metadata, you can also filter on values from a managed metadata column. So that might be something very specific to your business processes. You might have your products or something like that listed inside a site column that is of type managed metadata, and using terms from the term store. So it's also possible to filter by those terms as well, and create your content that way. Now, one of the things that's unique about the Lightning Conductor, you see many SharePoint sites that might have multiple instances of a Rollup tool on the page. So maybe multiple instances of something like a content query web part or content by search web part, and they're all performing a different aggregation on the page. And that not only slows the page load time down, but it also clogs up the page with lots of content that people need to take on board. So one of the things you can do with the Lightning Conductor is actually build all of these views inside the same instance, and using the view drop down, you'll be able to select which one is the most relevant one to what you want to see. That helps with performance because you're only loading a subset of the content, but it also allows the users to be able to drill down and see more information using the Lightning Conductor. Possibly for the next most common scenario is tasks. It's not human nature to go looking for tasks. Yeah, I'm a strange one. I do go looking for things to do all the time. I'm one of those people that can't sit still. However, using the SharePoint out of the box, what we don't want to do is keep navigating to different SharePoint team sites to see if somebody happens to have created a task and assigned it to me. What's useful is to be able to aggregate all of these tasks into one place, filtered by the assigned to column, so that it's showing tasks that contain me. Obviously it might contain not just me, but one of my colleagues as well. So I can filter those out so I can see which tasks I need to perform. We can also see things like tasks due today, high priority tasks, a mixture of each. You can do cross-column filtering, which we'll be having a look at. And you can also do grouping as well. And there's no restrictions to how many groups you can apply. I know things like the content query web part and the content by search, you can only group up to 3 columns. We can keep on grouping. So if we wanted to group by site name first, and then we wanted to group by list name, and then we wanted to group by task status and then task priority, we could do that, so you can keep drilling down into the content that you want to display. Another common scenario is calendars. So the need for calendars, we could have multiple conference rooms that require booking, or we're managing a team of people, or any form of resource, and we want to check the availability of that resource. So using the Lightning Conductor, of course, you can aggregate calendar lists, and you could display the calendar list items inside a grid view. However, reading those items, even if we sort by date or what have you, it's difficult to be able to work out, without looking at a calendar, what's happening on each day. Obviously, sometimes we want to see whether it falls on a Sunday, or whether it is on a public holiday or something like that. So for those reasons, it's much nicer to be able to see this content actually within inside a calendar view. So there's no separate purchase or anything like that. The Lightning Conductor contains a calendar view. It's one of the JSON views that are built in, the XSLT views, which are built into the Lightning Conductor. So you can aggregate from tasks or calendar lists, anything that contains start date, duration date, fields, and display those items within inside a calendar. And it offers things like day, week, and month view, and things like that as well. And once more, that could be a separate view within inside the Lightning Conductor. So you could see tasks that are perhaps grouped by priority, and also offer your users a calendar view of those tasks as well. Okay, so there's just a few scenarios, but obviously the list goes on. We work with every single type of SharePoint list that comes out of the box, including custom lists. And custom lists are one of those ones where people can get into a bit of a pickle with, because obviously custom lists can be created for lots of different things by different users. And you're going to decide on a number of different columns that you want for your custom list, and you might have several instances of that. You want to roll it up, but for some reason you're seeing lots of other content rolled up, and obviously the Lightning Conductor doesn't have a way of distinguishing one custom list from another, and that's why we recommend building some content types whenever you can, so you can define the results that you want to see. So we can set the Lightning Conductor to aggregate from all of the custom lists, but filter by a specific content type, so that you're seeing the content that you wish to be displayed. So let's have a look. We're going to flick into SharePoint. Okay. Just bear with me one moment whilst we bring that up. There we go. So here in the in Office 365, we're going to go through and add the Lightning Conductor onto the page. Now, we'll just mention that you could use the Lightning Conductor add-in not just in Office 365, but also in SharePoint on-premises as well for 2013 and 2016. But we do also have a farm solution available. So the farm solution looks and behaves in the same way. There's some things that the Lightning Conductor add-in does that the farm solution doesn't, and vice versa. And we'll explain what those things are as we go along. But if you are using SharePoint on-premises, there is a farm solution available, and Office 365, obviously only the add-in will work with inside that environment. So the first thing I'm going to do is go through and edit the page. And we're going to insert from the web part menu, or the app part, doesn't really make any difference, one of the Lightning Conductor instances. Now, once you've got the Lightning Conductor add-in installed from the App Store, you will see that there's actually about 4 different instances of the Lightning Conductor. So we have some pre-built or pre-configured instances of the Lightning Conductor. So to get things started, let's just have a look at those. I'm going to start off by selecting the tasks rollup, which is here under the web part. So I can select that, click on to add, and we don't need to do any form of configuration. It's already done that for me. So we've got the view currently, which is called My Tasks, and clearly I can see from here that there are no tasks being aggregated for me, which is good. And I should hope not. It's coming up for 7:30 p.m. in the evening. But I can go through and see all tasks. So if I click onto all tasks, we can see we've got a list of different tasks there that we can work with, and there's another built-in view called My Overdue Tasks. So like I said, no configuration involved. We just needed to drop that on the page. That was all, and it's already working with our content, albeit from this one single site collection, but a great way to get started. And if you want to, you can start refining these views. You don't have to start from scratch if you don't want to. You could use these as a starting point and build upon it with your own configuration. So let's just blow that one away. We'll remove the tasks roll up from the page there. And from the insert ribbon again, we'll go to web part and we'll just do a quick document roll up. So I can add the document roll up onto the page. Okay, and once again, it's got my documents. So let's change that to all documents. And here you can see there's a whole bunch of documents added to the page for me. So we can go through and view those. Let's select the all documents once more. And one of the things that again is unique about the Lightning Conductor is as we scroll down, you'll notice here that we've also got the folder structure. So a lot of content roll-up tools will actually flatten out your folder structure. Everything will appear as a root item inside the roll-up, but here we can actually navigate the folders, so you can expand and collapse the folders and navigate your content that way, even if each of those folders lives inside a different library in a different site or site collection. So that's just some quick wins, quick examples where we can just simply drop one of those onto the page and begin working straight away. But what we're going to do is have a bit more fun and configure these from scratch. So I'm going to go to the insert web part again, select the Lightning Conductor and add that onto the page here. So the Lightning Conductor in its unconfigured state, first of all, we need to go through and click Edit Web Part. And the reason why I'm going to do that is to enable the use of multiple views. So if we want to stop our users from creating multiple views, you can just have it as a static view on the page. There's no performance gain or anything. It's just simply we just want to have a single view and that's it. So it's optional to come in and enable views, which allows me to create multiple views inside the same instance. So I'll tick that option, click on OK, and the menu in the drop down will actually under actions will now allow me to create a view, whereas before it would have just said configure view. So we'll click onto create view, and here we have the Lightning Conductor instance. Let's just maybe see a bit more on the screen by getting rid of our quick launch. There we go. So we've basically got 4 tabs in the Lightning Conductor dialog. The first tab is used to name the view that we're creating, as well as setting the view priority, so in which order do we want that to appear in. And then we've also got a choice of different roll-up providers. I'll talk about those in just a moment. And we've also got a choice of different display providers in here. So that we're not jumping around, the first thing I'm going to do is just leave those exactly as they are. We're going to build a quick view using the object model rollup provider, and I'll talk about how that works, and also using the grid view. And then we're going to switch that to using the search rollup instead. So we're going to start things off by creating a tasks view. So I'll just simply name my my view there, whatever I want it to appear as. And we're going to use the object model rollup provider. Now the difference between them, this one is basically CSOM, so any developers amongst us will have heard of CSOM. It's the client-side object model, and there are some restrictions to the client-side object model when you're running with inside a SharePoint add-in. And one of those restrictions is you can't go outside of the current site collection. So if you are performing a rollup within a site collection, then the client-side object model offers a very quick and easy way of configuring a view. You're going to see live updates. So as new items are created or items are modified, you'll see those changes instantly. Or you can use search, which offers you far better performance because the content has already been indexed. It also allows us to go across different site collections as well. And the price we have to pay for that is the fact that the items may not be displayed immediately as they're created or changed. Typically, you're looking at about a 20-minute lag or thereabouts when using the search rollup provider to see a change made to an item. So I'm going to start off with as I mentioned, the object model rollup provider, and we use the grid view to build our view. And the grid view is very easy to use. It just allows us to go through and select the columns that we want to see, and that is used regardless as to whether you're using search or the object model to build your content rollup. Now, the first part of the configuration under data source allows me to select where I want that content to come from. So we're providing the scope of the rollup. Now, we can be very granular or we can be very general as to where those items are going to come from. So the largest scope when we're using the object model is the current site collection. Don't forget you can go across site collections using search. So largest scope here is the current site collection. I don't care where they're coming from. All I'm going to do in this particular example is select the type of list that I want to aggregate, which in this case is tasks. Coming from the current site collection will be any task list at all appearing anywhere inside that site collection. So that is very general, but that caters for new sites being created, new task lists being created. They're automatically going to be aggregated into my view. We could then drill down further, so we can just choose the host web, that's the site hosting the Lightning Conductor, or we can go through and select individual sites as well inside the site collection, so we can go through and select which ones we want to include, which ones we don't want to include. Or you can do the same for lists, where notice this is grayed out now, the list type, because what we're basically going to do is go through and select some individual lists to include inside the rollup. So if you want to be specific, then you can be. So we're going to choose the current site collection, and I'll choose the task list template. Note here that you could also filter by content type as well if we wanted to. So there's a drop down of the different content type groups. So if we were to go to list content types, we would see all of the different types of list in there, such as task and so on. There's no need to select that since we're already telling it that we want to aggregate from tasks. I can just simply leave that returning any type of list item created with inside a task list, but filtering by content type allows me to be a bit more specific as well, especially if we've created some custom content types. Two types of filters that you can create. We have the persistent and the dynamic filters. So persistent are set by the person configuring the Lightning Conductor. So we don't wish our users to change them. We could say we're only going to show tasks that are starting in the future, for example, and we wouldn't want to show tasks that are starting in the past. So we could do that. We can also have dynamic filters, which allows the end user themselves to be able to filter using the toolbar headings and or the column headings, or we can select from both. So we could apply a persistent filter and then also allow the end user to further filter the content if they wish to. There are some other refinements here as well. So we can also limit the items and things like that if we so choose. We're going to go to the columns tab, and this is where we can start building our view. So from this point onwards, it's the same whether you're using the search or whether you're using the client-side object model. Notice this has brought back all of the different column names. Now, one of the things that the search does differently, the page looks the same, but it brings back managed properties, not actual column names. So those managed properties are the ones that are indexed within inside the search. So you may see some differences as to whether you're using the client-side object model versus the search in the actual headings for the columns. So all we do is select the columns that we want to display. So I've got things like the task name, the start date, the priority, and if we scroll up, we should see things like the assigned to, percentage complete, and so on. We've also got due date in there. So nice little tip. What I tend to do, once I've selected the columns that I want to see, I can just click onto another tab and go back again, and they'll all appear at the top there, so I can see which ones I selected. Now, what I do want to do is make sure that the task name appears first. So I'll drag that, just simply drag that up to the top, and we can put start date prior to the due date and so on. And notice that we've got the assigned to and percentage complete as well. So they're the columns that I wish to see. If we just scroll to the right a little bit, we've got sorting, and you can sort by multiple columns. So if I do sort by more than one column, you can set the primary and the secondary sort in the top right hand corner just simply by dragging those into the appropriate order. And then we've also got filters as well. So this is the persistent filter, and you'll notice it varies based on the data types. If we look at the assigned to column and click onto the filter icon for that, it has the me checkbox, so we can basically say equals me or contains me, which would be useful. So any task that contains my name in the assigned to field would be filtered out dynamically for each user. So that will vary based on the data type for each one. If we went into the due date, for example, notice that we have the today checkbox, so we could say is equal to today for the due date, and we can also offset that by a positive or a negative number. So if we wanted to see tasks that are due within the next week, for example, or were due in the last week, then we could do that using that filter, and that would be dynamic as well. Now, one of the things you can also do with this is filter across columns. If we were to apply multiple filters within this view here, it's basically going to be an AND for each column. But if we select the advanced filtering, then what we can do is basically select an OR an AND. We can add multiple filter conditions, so you can add as many as you like there. An example would be we want to see tasks that the due date is today, or we can go through and select the priority and set that to high. So if we're looking for something to do, we can see what's due today or what is a high priority. So that allows me to do a condition with an OR, but it also allows me to add a nested condition as well. So we can add an AND or an OR there also, and keep on adding conditions to it. So we can create some very advanced scenarios as far as our filters are concerned. Okay, we can also add a calculated column. I'm going to come on to that shortly. So all we've done here so far is just simply select some columns that we wish to see. We've looked at the filtering and the sorting, and now we can go on to the display tab. So it's here on the display tab where we can do some data formatting and styling. So the display formatting, first of all, everything is going to appear as text. So what we want to do is apply some formatting to that. So I'd like to take the percentage complete, which currently, if I don't do anything, will show as a decimal. So instead of a decimal, we'll actually format it as a percentage. Things like the assigned to, we could contain a link to the user's page. If it was a start date or a due date, we can use the data formatting for that. And note that you can also overtype these with your own data formatting as well. So if you don't like any of the Lightning tools data formatting, then you can basically go through and create your own in there. So we can set the display format. You can also configure column aliases as well, column widths. So you get the correct width as you would like it to appear on the page. We do automatically fit the column to the content, but sometimes based on the width of the web part zone on the page, you do get it going to multiple lines. So that way you can force the width to be wider if you want to. Here we can also do some grouping. So we can group by any of the columns that are shown here within the view. Notice that you also have the option to display or not to display a column. So one of the things we could do, for example, if we go through and select a few more columns, we could also show the priority and the task status. So I could select those two items, go back to the display, and we could choose that we want to group by those two columns, but I'm not interested in also seeing them inside the grid. So I can deselect that, and again I can set my order there, which is going to be the primary grouping and which is going to be the secondary grouping. Okay, so once we've done that, we can also go through and apply some conditional formatting. So in here we can take any of these rows and apply some formatting to it. So let's go to the priority. We'll make sure that any high priority tasks stand out. So in here we can apply the formatting to the entire row. We can change the fore color and change the background color. So we can just simply go through and select a color that we want to use. And you can then set your value. So here we will set that if it's a high priority. And this is just like the advanced filtering. If we wanted to also add another condition, then we could do, and you can separate them all with an and or an or as well. So we'll save that. A few more refinements on here. We have the ability to show and hide the column headers and things like that. The column that we want to link on to open up the item. We can show the sub-menu, which is the drop-down menu that you would ordinarily see inside a list, so that users can choose whether they want to view the item, edit the item, or open the item. Document icons and things like that are more relevant to document libraries, which we'll have a look at shortly. And then we've also got things like the initial state of the groups. So do we want them to be expanded or collapsed, and what have you. We'll set some pagination. So we'll set that to 50 here. And also I just want to point out that we've also got an item not returned message. So instead of just saying no items available, we could say there are no tasks assigned to you. Okay, and we'll hit save. And that will be our first roll-up. So there's the roll-up view. You can see here we've got the different task statuses on the left, so we can expand and collapse those. And then within it, we've also got the nested priorities. So I can see the high priority tasks there contain the conditional formatting and so on. Now I just want to build on this a little bit before we go to search. So what I am going to do is just jump back into configuring the view. So we'll select configure view there, click onto the column tab, and we can add a calculated column to the view. And once again, this is going to apply to a view that's containing either search results or the client-side object model results. So I'm going to just do a quick example. We'll figure out the date range that we have to perform these tasks within, and I'll set that to be an integer. And in here we'll select the columns that we want to perform the calculation on. So I'm going to take the due date. We'll deduct the start date from that, and that will actually give me a value in milliseconds. So we have to perform a calculation. It's going to be similar to that. Regardless, it's going to be a calculation, and you'll see the results for it. So that's the calculated column. I can choose to display that where I want to display it, and obviously we can save the view, which we would want to do some data formatting on. But you can see the results there anyway, showing the time span that we have to perform that particular task. Now what you can also do with that is run a total. So if we went back to configuring the view, on the display tab, we can total up that column. So let's just scroll down. So we have some summary functions here that we can apply. So if we go to the date range, which is the last column, we could select that and apply a total. And we can have a sum, min, max, average, and so on. At the end of each column, we can format it if we want to, and choose whether we want it at the end of each group, the end of each page, the end of all of the data, and so on. So we'll apply that, click save, and you'll notice now, as well as having the calculated column, that we've also got a running total per group inside the view. Okay, so there's just some of the things that we can do with the grid view. One very quick view we'll create. I'm just going to go and add a calendar view. So we'll call this one tasks in a calendar. So this time we'll leave this as CSOM just for this example. It again works with search. I'm going to choose the XSLT display provider, and we'll go to the data source, and we'll just simply choose current site collection. We'll choose the tasks again. There's no need to select a column unless you wanted to perform some filtering on it, so we can just leave that as it is. Go to the display tab, and you'll notice that there are a few built-in displays that we have within the Lightning Conductor. So we have some sort of getting started examples. We have an announcements threaded view, a calendar view, and posts view, and so on. So I'm going to select the calendar option, and we'll hit save once more. Okay, so there we are. We've got a view here called tasks, which shows grouping on all of our tasks, or we can also select the drop down and choose tasks within a calendar and display that same thing but with inside a calendar view, which offers sort of day, week, month views and so on. So let's jump into search now and have a look at that. So what I'm going to do is go through and create another new view, and we'll give that a name. We'll call this one documents, and within this we're going to have a look at how this performs as well. So we're going to call this documents. We'll choose the search Rollup engine provider this time, and I'm going to leave it on grid view display provider for the time being. Okay, there are some advanced properties here which I'll come on to in just a moment. Now on the data source tab, that's changed. So rather than having a tree view where we can go through and select the sites that we want to include or the site collections that we want to include and so on, here we are choosing a result source, and that result source, there's many that are already built in, but you can also create your own result source. Most of the time you don't need to create a result source. There's this one that is a very broad scope, the items matching a content type. So since all of the list items in SharePoint are created with a content type, we can basically go through and choose one of those. So I've selected items matching a content type, and you'll notice here we can change the query text, so we can change the site collection that we're getting the items from. We can force it to just contain the site names or the items and so on. So there's a few refinements there that you can use. And we've also got some different tags that we can apply. So we can change the scope, so we can select certain sites or certain site collections. And what I want to do is change the content type. So the content type I'm going to choose is called documents. So we'll go through and select the document content type, and any custom content types that you create will also show up in here, so you can basically go through and select it and see your own items that way. So all we've done there is choose the items matching a content type. We've set it to document, and now when we go onto the columns tab, we'll see some columns, but these are, remember, managed properties. They're not actually the column name that would appear inside the view. So I've got things like the title that I can display, the size of the document, the author of the document, and so on. So we'll just go through and select a few of those. And again, just to get those all the way up to the top, let's just go to the display tab and back again. So they will appear at the top here for me. I'm going to show you how to add a managed property in just a moment. What I'm going to do first is just refine this view. So we do want title to appear first. Let's just drag that to the top there. Okay, so we can format that to not show a file extension. I don't want to see the file extension there. The author, we could show a hyperlink or whatever. And the size we can format as well, kilobytes, megabytes, or gigabytes. So we've set that. I'll set a column to open up the item. We could group by folders, show the document icon, which is another nice thing to do. Let's have those folders collapsed by default, since that's the only grouping that we're doing. And we could also hide any empty folders as well. So if somebody's just created a folder called folder 1 and done nothing with it, we don't want to see it in our Rollup. Now we've got the items per page. I'm going to set that to 500. The reason I'm setting that to 500 is I wanted to show off the performance of this. So we'll hit save at that point. Okay, and we've got 500 documents already displayed inside the view. Now, what we can do here is go through and turn on the statistics within inside the add-in. So we'll go back to configure view again, and on the first tab is a checkbox that says display statistical information. So we'll choose that and click save. So that will give you an idea on the performance of each rollup. So something I really recommend doing in any environment when you're performing a rollup, just have a look at how many lists are included, how many items are you returning, and how long that's taking to display that content. So I'm currently aggregating 500 items per page. Now remember that there is pagination in there. If we scroll all the way down to the bottom of our 500 items, we have 8 pages full of 500 items, and you can start to see where all of those groups are displayed as well. So to load 500 items, it's taking 11 milliseconds using the search to display those items and perform the rollup, including actually rendering it on the page. The total time is basically 0.6 of a second to display that content. You can see I'm rolling up from 193 different lists inside that view. So what we can also do is just go back to configure the view. Let's go back to the display tab, and we'll leave this records per page blank and hit save. And you'll see where the magic number of 500 came from, because this is something well worth pointing out. Since I left it blank, we know there was 8 pages worth of 500 items. 500 is actually the maximum that we will display on any one page. So it's a good tip. It looks like there's only 500 documents aggregated here. So don't go beyond 500 when you're creating your pagination, basically is the tip there. Okay, but you can display more than that, obviously, using pagination. So if we were to put it back to the 500 maximum again, and let's just scroll right down to the bottom, and of course we can navigate to the last page there, page 8, and we've still got more content being displayed. Okay, so that's building a view. What I want to do is one more using search that shows off the managed properties. So this one is also going to be tasks, but I'm going to call it tasks by search. We'll use the search rollup engine provider, and we'll use the grid view. And under the data source, I'm going to select the items matching a content type. And that content type ID is going to be tasks or task. So we'll select task, we'll choose select there. And when we go to the columns tab, you're already familiar from the previous one that we did that we can go through and select some of these task names or task columns. But what we see here is things like title, not task title, because again, it's a managed property. I don't get to see the assigned to, but I can see the author of the task and so on. So there's other information in here that I perhaps want to see. So the author would probably be useful. We can see who created the task in the first place. Nothing else that I particularly want to see there. So what I'm going to do is just simply drag the title all the way up to the very top. And I'm going to add in some managed properties. So these managed properties, we can click onto the link there to look them up. And you can also create your own managed properties as well for any custom columns that you have created. You can filter the managed properties. The one that I want is fairly near the top anyway. Notice it's here called assigned to. So I'm going to grab that, assigned to, copy it, and just paste it into my managed property field. I can set the data type. So what type of data is it? And then we can add it to our view, select it, and choose where in the view it's going to be displayed. And of course we could do that with all of the other columns. So we've got things like due date, who it was created by, description, and so on, that we might also want to add into the view there. So once I've selected that, we can just carry on. We can go to the display again. We can do all the data formatting. We can set an alias, so I could actually rename that to task title so it doesn't become confusing to my users. And we could set that to created by, and we'll put a space in assigned to. And once we're happy, again, we can just basically click onto save. And there we go. We've got our tasks view. I've not spent too much time on the formatting this time, but you can see we've got tasks, who they're created by and who they're assigned to within inside a view, returning results from search. Okay. And I guess just one last one. We're going to show off a JSON view. So I'm going to name this one timeline. It doesn't matter again if we use search or whether we use the object model. We're going to select the JSON display provider. Under the data source, we'll use the current site collection. Oops, and we'll choose tasks. I don't need to select anything here, just like the XSLT view. And in here, you'll see there's some JSON views, one of them called timeline. So I can select the timeline, click save. Okay, that's a fairly big timeline. Let's just reconfigure that. Let's go with search there instead, and tell it that we want tasks. Okay, so one more time, we'll just try that. We'll hit save again. Okay, let's just save and close. Okay, and there's our timeline view. So we've got each of the different tasks within inside a timeline. A lot of them were created at the same time, but we can go through and select one of these, and we can edit the date range to suit, or also remove the task from the timeline as well, if we so choose. So there's lots of built-in views as well that are useful, things like the calendar view, the timeline view, the posts view if we're aggregating from posts and so on. And again, you've got the choice of the different types of Rollup, whether it's client-side object model or the search engine provider. So let's just jump back to the slides. So just to recap on a couple of things, we talked about the list type and the content types and how we could filter by those, and that makes the list of columns available to us as well that we can select from. There's lots of ways of limiting the items, so we can use the different types of filters, the persistent and the dynamic, and there's the advanced filtering that we can perform as well to bring back less items. So we took a look at that. All of the different ways of building a view, and we looked at the calculated columns as well. And the calculated columns, there's lots of things that you can do. That was just a very simple scenario, but we've built in controls into the views before as well. So things like a button that will mark a task as completed just by clicking it. Inline editing is another example that you could do with a column if you wanted to make one of the columns updatable, or displaying KPIs and things like that. There's all sorts of calculations that you can drop inside a calculated column. So that's really brought us to the end of the webinar and the demo. I'll just point out that if you do want to download the Lightning Conductor add-in, there is a QR code there on the page, so you can just scan that. That will take you to the link to download it from the App Store. That contains a free trial, so you can add it to your tenant and you can start building some of the views that we built today. And also, please, if you want to follow us on Facebook or Twitter, there's the URLs there. And if you have any questions that you want to ask, you can either ask them now, or you could email me, brett@lightningtools.com, or also you can tweet on at Lightning Tools. So I'll pause for a moment. If you want to raise your hand, feel free to do so. If you've got a question, I'll unmute you and you can ask away. So I'm not seeing any raised hands as yet. No? Okay. Well, I guess if there are no questions, feel free to, like I say, drop me a line if you do have any questions. Brett@lightningtools.com, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions there. Many thanks.